All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I am one of the dietitians here with the Giant Company, so Giant and Martin's. Uh, if you're new to our classes, welcome. If you are a returning customer, of course, welcome back. Today's class runs a little bit differently, and we haven't run one, I want to say, since the spring. So it's been a moment since we have done an Ask the Dietitian. This class, again, runs a little differently in that I do have some questions that have already been asked or we've seen or common things that customers ask about. And then, yes, make sure you tune into the Q&A. Ask any nutrition related questions you may have. Now, of course, as with any of our classes, this is meant to be general nutrition advice. We cannot provide one-on-one nutrition counseling or anything like that. So most of my comments, recommendations come with a, well, it depends because we are all unique people. So I'm going to dive into some of the questions that I've kind of seen a lot of or just think would be relevant. And then, yes, I already see one question in the Q&A, so please start dropping more in there. Let us get started. I love these because there's so many things we can ask and talk about nutrition, and I think this is a great opportunity to do that. All right, let us keep going. Okay, so either in our classes or just out there, you're probably seeing the idea of functional beverages. So, what exactly are functional beverages? What are they? And truly, it's not a hyper defined term. Like, I found some things online that kind of define it, but functional beverages really run the gamut of they're any type of beverage that goes beyond just hydration. And we'll talk about electrolytes later because hydration is even kind of a functional beverage. But truly, these are non-alcoholic beverages that have something added to it. And granted, not all of these have robust research and everything behind it, but they could have extra vitamins, minerals, herbs, botanicals, adaptogens, caffeine. Like it really is such a huge range of products. And again, they can make a lot of claims about stress management and sleep and energy and gut health and like anything can really fall under this. I would include things like mushroom coffees and lots of things under here. So you'll see ingredients like caffeine, taurine, various vitamins, like a lot of B vitamins you'll see in energy beverages, probiotics. So even that like pre-probiotics, like we've talked a lot about various gut health beverages. These really do fall within that functional beverage piece too. They can be smoothies, teas, soda replacements. So like so many things fall in this category. Are they a 100% necessary beverage, food to consume? Probably not, but for a lot of people, it may have an added benefit. But just like everything else, you want to look into those ingredients, see if they make sense for your health conditions. They may interact with medications and other things. So just being very careful, but it is an area you'll probably see more and more of in the future. Another one we get a lot of questions about, and I've just seen kind of in the media, is the idea of anti-inflammatory diets. Like, what are they? What should I be eating? All of that. Now, truly, there isn't a one size fits all approach when it comes to anti-inflammatory diets. And truly, I, especially as a dietitian, but just in general, I would rather have people look at their overall diet, as this is phrased, than people who are worried about, like, oh, well, that food is inflammatory or that ingredient is inflammatory. And truly, it doesn't really work that way. There are very few ingredients we really can suss out as being inflammatory because we all react to ingredients in foods differently. And it's just inflammation is such a broad topic. You can have acute inflammation where, you scrape your hand and it gets red and it's hot. That's inflammation. But we also have what we refer to more as chronic or long-term inflammation. And that really comes from not so much one off foods or ingredients. That's things like health conditions like uncontrolled diabetes and heart disease and cancer and autoimmune diseases and all of these different things that can cause long term chronic inflammation. And yes, our diet is important when it comes to these conditions, managing them, preventing them. But truly, there's no one size fits all when it comes to an anti-inflammatory diet. But we tend to look for foods emphasizing more whole foods, so foods in their most quote unquote pure form. So whole fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, beans, lean proteins, but also fatty fishes. So some nutrients we think of like omega-3 fatty acids we're going to find in those fishes, but also nuts and seeds like walnuts. We also look for vitamin C rich foods, not vitamin C supplementation, because that can be its own thing that we could talk about. But vitamin C rich foods are often foods that also have a lot of antioxidants and polyphenols. And these antioxidants may be beneficial, again, in foods for this process. And I would also tack on gut-friendly foods. So we talk a lot about fiber, which I have another question about, probiotics, prebiotics. So all of these foods together when we're managing our health conditions and everything else kind of all run together. So I've talked a lot in my personal life and just I am intrigued by this. You probably have seen big chains start the idea of protein coffee, or if you're on social media, you may see the concept of Profi. So that's kind of the acronym, I guess, or not acronym, whatever you want to call that name. Is it actually good for you? Do you need to be drinking a protein coffee? And like anything else, like, no, you don't need to do anything, but it could be something that fits into your diet, or it might cause issues. So most dietitian answers are, it depends. So, yes, coffee has a lot of health benefits. It's a low calorie beverage when you drink it black, of course, but most Americans are not drinking their coffee black. They're adding a ton of sugar and creamers and things that, yeah, probably aren't the best for us. So, we've kind of see this trend of people adding protein drinks, so either pre-made or mixing protein powders into milk or into water and using that to kind of flavor their coffee. So there are some benefits to that if it's reducing your sugar intake, it's boosting your protein intake, often at a meal that most people don't eat a lot of protein. So breakfast tends to not have protein for a lot of Americans, so that can be a positive. However, adding, a protein powder or protein shake, especially if that's not a common thing in your diet, to coffee, which coffee for a lot of people and just the way coffee or caffeine functions, it makes a lot of people go to the bathroom. Adding a protein powder, which may have ingredients that might be disruptive to your GI system. It could have lactose, which maybe you don't agree with either. That can cause and further compound GI issues. It also is not a meal replacement. So just because we're adding protein to something doesn't necessarily make it a meal. So it could have potential benefits. I will also say coffee can be an appetite suppressant. So a lot of people are like, well, I'm not hungry for breakfast, but I bet you they drink a cup of coffee. And that often makes us not hungry for food. And that's not a great thing. We do want to eat actual food to get all of the nutrients we need, in addition to drinking something like a plain coffee or a protein coffee. I indulge in a protein coffee probably a couple times a week because I really enjoy it. But again, it's one small part of my diet. Now, this one, it's something I have seen over the years, and people have asked about. Is it safe to drink vinegar for weight loss? Or really any, I've seen it for diabetes, I've seen it for other, recommended for other things. Is it safe? And truly, and not only is it safe, but does it work? Because something being safe is one thing, but does it actually serve the function you're trying to get from it too? So, vinegar, and typically when you see these things about vinegar for health benefits, it's often an apple cider vinegar, typically like a raw apple cider vinegar. Uh, and a lot of the claims are around weight loss, blood sugar management, cholesterol. So there's a couple things. There are some studies, like not exactly long term, but there are some randomized control trials. They tend to be in smaller groups though, because it's kind of hard to get people, to do this kind of stuff. Um, that do show potential modest, very small increases in weight loss when somebody is adding vinegar. Or there's a slight decrease in cholesterol levels, a slight decrease in fasting blood sugar. However, so there are some claims out there that may be proven true. However, there are some side effects and consequences of drinking apple cider vinegar. So, first, if you're going to do this, one, again, it could interrupt with medications. It can actually cause blood sugar to go too low for some people who are at risk. It can really mess up with your stomach. So, yes, our stomachs are very acidic, but adding another acid to it can sometimes make some people very sick. It can inhibit our potassium absorption and other medication absorption too. And it can also really corrode your enamel. So it is an acid. And if you do not dilute it, so you don't want to just drink a shot of apple cider vinegar. If you're going to drink it, you want to do like a tablespoon of vinegar in a glass of water or use it as a salad dressing. Like that's a great option. So there are a ton of ways to add vinegar to your diet without just doing a shot of it. So is it safe? It can be in some circumstances, but it can also be harmful. And it can potentially have benefits, especially when people consume, again, like that tablespoon or so of vinegar in water before like a high carb meal. They are seeing some benefits. Is it a miracle? No, none of these things are. If it were, everybody would know about it. But it is one of the tools in the toolbox that you could try very carefully. Similarly, so we just kind of talked about carbs. What about the idea of fiber maxing? I'd love if you can raise your hand if you have heard of this term before. If you're not chronically online like I am, maybe you haven't, but especially on like TikTok, it's become quite the trend where people are talking about fiber maxing. Seen a couple hands. So protein has had its moment, like the whole protein coffee, but protein, a lot of people are talking about it. But fortunately, more people are talking about fiber now too, because yeah, protein is important in a lot of ways, but so is fiber. Now, the concept of fiber maxing. So there's no one definition because again, it's a viral trend. Some fiber maxing is literally just getting Americans or anybody, I guess, to eat enough fiber. So the general recommendation is like 25, 28, 30-ish grams of fiber a day is kind of the bare minimum we want to be hitting. Most Americans eat like 14 grams of fiber a day, so many of us fall really, really short. So this idea of fiber maxing, like, okay, maybe it could get us because there's so many health benefits to fiber. It can help manage our blood sugar, our weight. It can help reduce cholesterol levels. It can help, of course, with going to the bathroom, which, most people think of, but there's so many other benefits. Now, with that being said, fiber maxing, so kind of to me, that screams like you're doing it extreme to an extreme level. And eating a lot of fiber in one sitting or quickly escalating your intake, like let's say you're in that 14 grams a day group right now, you do not want to try to eat 30 or more grams per day tomorrow. That's too quick of an escalation, and that can cause a lot of GI symptoms. It can cause a lot of gas, bloating. It can cause either constipation or diarrhea because there's so many types of fibers out there, and we all react to them a little bit differently. Uh, it can inhibit the absorption of certain medications, and this is true regardless. Some medications and minerals, things like iron, calcium, but also medications like a lot of thyroid medications, just it can inhibit the absorption because fiber kind of likes to glue itself to things when it's exposed to water. So you definitely don't want to eat a lot of fiber around those minerals or around your medications. Often you want to separate by an hour at least. So there's a lot of issues with increasing your fiber too quickly. You also want to make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids when you're having those fiber foods and being physically active. Actually, moving our bodies can really, help with the movement of our GI system too. So fiber can be great for a lot of people. There are some GI issues, you know, different types of inflammatory bowel disease and just diverticulitis. When you're in that actual inflammatory state, some people need to eat less fiber. But for the majority of Americans, slowly increasing your fiber is often a good thing, but with the key being slow. So, do you need to fiber max? No, probably not. But if you're doing it slowly, that can still be considered fiber maxing, I guess. All right. So what about electrolyte drinks and like those hydration sticks and powders you see? Are they necessary? Again, the answer is it depends. But for the most part, for most of us on this call, the answer is no. They are not necessary. They're expensive, and they really are for people, like I have the picture here, who are exercising a lot, who are sweating a lot, especially people who are salty sweaters. Like if you've ever sweat and the like sweat, it's gonna sound gross, but like the sweat ring almost has like a ring of salt. Like you can, once it dries, you actually can see like crystals of salt. There are some people who are super salty sweaters. And then people who have like really strenuous jobs, or if it's really hot outside, which it's not anymore here, or people at high elevations, there's certain groups. Or if you have had, granted, if you are experiencing a lot of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, you often need to be going to the doctor for something like this. But that might be a time when you're recommended to have electrolytes because you've lost a lot of them through the vomiting and diarrhea or sweating. So there are some instances where, yes, electrolytes might be necessary. And what are they? So, electrolytes are typically minerals that are found in our blood, our sweat, our urine, all of our fluids, really. And yes, if we have lost a significant amount of them, we should be replenishing them. However, most of us, it is like weirdly sunny in here, I'm sorry. Most of us are not losing copious amounts in small intervals. So, we tend to be able to replenish them, and electrolytes are things like calcium, sodium, potassium, bicarbonate. And again, these are chloride. Like these are things we get through food. If we're eating a balanced diet, for most of us, that's going to be enough. And then water is a perfectly fine beverage to consume to hydrate ourselves. Again, if you fall in that extreme category, you've been ill, you're a super sweater, all these different things, I would still talk with your healthcare provider before taking any of these because there have been reports and people who have really harmed themselves by consuming a lot of these, especially some of those electrolyte powders. They might have like 1,000 milligrams of sodium per stick. That's a lot of sodium in one stick if you do not need it. So, again, moderation. For most of us, water and foods will get us all of the electrolytes that we need. And this kind of falls into the same category. And I think this is my last question before I know there are plenty of questions in the chat already or in the Q&A. Is one type of salt healthier than another? So you'll see in some of those hydration supplements, there's a lot of different salts. And salt is a chemical term, but there are different types of salts out there. And not just, sodium salts, which are the kind of salts we'll eat. Sodium chloride is going to be the most common salt. Potassium chloride is another that some people who are limiting their sodium, they'll consume that one. But truly here, you'll see claims of like pink Himalayan salt is healthier, or Celtic salt, or sea salt is better than table salt. And really, at the end of the day, they're all nearly identical. And truly, for most Americans, we need to be consuming less of any of them. So, not one type of salt is going to be healthier than another. Some studies have seen, they're different sizes sometimes. So, like this picture is probably a Himalayan salt. They're big granules. And maybe by volume, you may be using less if you do a teaspoon of something that's a big granule as opposed to really fine. Yeah, you'll use less. Um, but that's the goal. If you want to choose one that tastes different and you like that and it gets you to eat less, that's great. But do not switch to one of these salt alternatives. And it's not an alternative because they're the same, but don't switch to a Himalayan or a Celtic or a kosher because you've heard it's healthier because they are not. The claims are often, oh, it has more of these micronutrients or it has more minerals. Technically, the mineral composition is slightly different because that's why it's a different color and a different taste. But the amount is so minute, you should not be eating salt to get these micronutrients. At the end of the day, it's still predominantly sodium chloride, which for a lot of us can raise our blood pressure and cause other issues. So if you like it and can use less of it, great, but it is not necessarily healthier. These are upcoming classes, so I just will throw them on there and we'll go back to them at the end. But I know there's a lot of questions, so I want to get to them. Let us see. So somebody asked, can you please review some great sources of calcium in foods? Certainly. So we can get calcium in a lot of foods. Typically, what we think about are going to be those dairy and dairy alternatives. So things like cow's milk, cottage cheeses, yogurts, but also dairy alternatives are often fortified with calcium. So things, or have some naturally occurring. So things like cow's milk, soy milk, almond milk, those types of beverages will also be fortified. Almonds, like actual almonds you eat, some leafy greens will also have calcium. One food that I think is kind of slept on when it comes to calcium are sesame seeds. So, tahini, which is a sesame seed paste that you often will eat, people will add it to hummus, you can make dressings. Some, it depends on if it's a whole sesame seed that's ground. They actually can be a good source of calcium as well. So, nuts and seeds are part of that as well. Um, oh, I had another thought when it came to calcium and it is escaping me. Oh, this is not the thought, but this is another one. Canned fishes that are canned with the bones. So when you can the bones, they get a little bit softer, so they are edible. And of course, bones are going to have calcium. So that is another source too. There's something else with calcium I want to add to that, and I can't think of what it is. So I will think about it. Um, that's a great question, though. Let's see. Someone says, I'm an adult who drinks milk with my breakfast and dinner. Is there such a thing as drinking too much milk? That is a great question. And I think certainly that we can consume too much of any one thing. However, if you are drinking, I think the current recommendation stands that 3 servings of dairy a day is kind of what we want to hit to get that calcium and vitamin D and some of the other nutrients we get from dairy foods. So 2 a day is perfectly fine. That fits within that 3 servings of dairy. But I would also look and see, are you consuming other sources of dairy as well? And how much fat is in that? There's so many other questions to ask there. But when it is, just a milk and you're drinking those 8 ounces, certainly that can fit into your day. Absolutely. But no, 2 glasses is perfectly fine. It is getting so sunny. I am so sorry. This is crazy. The weather and everything here has been, I am so blurry. What is happening? Hold on. I am so sorry. Let me close this. Wow, this is very strange. The weather in Pennsylvania is just something else. I'm still blurry and I don't know what to do about it. My apologies. Let's see. Let's see. What supplements do you feel have nutritional value and for what purposes? Okay. I'm still blurry. What is happening? Let's see. I am going to switch. There we go. Switch my camera. Okay. Uh, that is a very lofty question. So I think we're going to skip that one for now because there are so many different types of supplements out there. But that's a good question because everybody's a little bit different. But I like that question. I'm going to hold on to that one. Is overnight rice better than freshly cooked rice? And the question kind of relates to starch resistance or resistant starches. So, good question. So, the idea is when we cook and cool, and safely cool is part of that, starchy foods. So, things like rice, pasta, beans, potatoes. When we cook and cool these foods, the types of starches in there kind of change their chemical structure in that cooking and cooling. It's called starch retrogradation. And this process can shift some of the starch molecules so they act a little bit more like a fiber than they did that starch. And starch can, for some people, have a bigger impact on our blood sugar than a fiber. So, certainly, if you want to cook and cool your rice, make sure you're doing it safely because there are some safety issues when we cook and cool rice that we want to be doing it properly. So, taking it out of the pot, putting it into something that's a little bit more shallow so the rice can cool faster. So get it into the fridge really quickly. But yes, in theory, there are some potential health benefits to cooking and cooling our starches. Is that to say that you can't eat rice when it's freshly cooked? No, freshly cooked rice is delicious and amazing. But there are some potential benefits to doing that. Let's see. Um, Somebody said calories, fat content, carbs, protein. Is it better to count one of those than the other when trying to lose weight? It's a very good question. And again, all of us are going to be a little different, but truly, when it comes down to weight loss, we do need to burn more calories than we're consuming. So, yes, the calories really do matter. But with that being said, the ratio of the different macronutrients, so the macronutrients are carbs, proteins, and fats, and each of those, the macronutrients, have calories. Carbs and protein have fewer calories per gram than fat does. So, but with that being said, fat can help us feel satiated. It's important for certain processes and absorbing certain nutrients. Carbs can have fiber, and carbs also provide us with energy. Protein is also satiating, so it keeps you full. It's important for muscle health and so many other things. So they're all important. And, you know, we are each very different in if weight loss is our goal, what we want to track, if we want to track. But calories at the end of the day do matter. And how you want to consume your foods and what makes you feel best might vary. So, again, it depends. But yeah, calories do matter. And then for the most part, you want to hit protein and then fiber is important. And then maybe fill in with those healthy fats too. But people are very different. Let's see. This is a great question. How long does it take to study to become a dietitian at a university? Uh, so it's varied a little bit over the course of the last like 10 years or so, but I'll give myself as an example. So most dietitians have a bachelor's degree in nutrition, so a 4-year degree where you learn all those basic sciences like biology, chemistry, microbiology, anatomy. You take psych classes and sociology and all of these things. And then your nutrition classes, where you learn about community nutrition and medical nutrition therapy and food science and food service. And you really get a broad education. Then, most degree programs, you have to go then and do an internship where you shadow and work alongside a dietitian in those various fields. So, you'll shadow in a hospital, you'll shadow in food service, in community, which is what we're considered. Um, However, now as of 2024, so almost 2 years ago now, dietitians have to have a master's degree to be credentialed. So any new dietitians coming up the ranks, they will have had to have a bachelor's degree, typically in nutrition. It could be public health or something else, then a master's, and then the internship. So if you are meeting with a dietitian, they typically have a lot of education and background in nutrition. So that's a really good question. I love answering that. Oh, there's so many questions. So it's a follow up to the calcium question. They can't tolerate yogurt. That's okay. That's only one food that has calcium. Lots of other great options too. Okay. I know we're at 12:30. I think I'm going to answer like one or two more questions. And there's so many great questions. So we're going to hold on to these and definitely get to them if we host another one. But somebody asked, what about a spoon of olive oil a day? Is there a benefit or any problems? So, olive oil certainly is going to have such a nice balance of various healthy fats. However, eating just a spoon of olive oil or spoonful of olive oil, a tablespoon of fat, whether regardless of really where it comes from, is going to be about 120 calories. And for a lot of people, we don't have that kind of wiggle room when it comes to calories. If you do, great. However, just drinking a tablespoon of oil, it actually can cause a lot of GI issues too. Like, I don't want to say the name of the place, but a popular coffee place added olive oil to their lattes and things last year or within the last couple years, and it was causing a lot of GI distress for people, like causing diarrhea and different things because oil really can lubricate the inside of your body and your intestines and can really cause a lot of issues. So, yes, it's a healthy fat. And that has health benefits as well, but it can cause some stomach problems. I would much prefer, again, sodium in mind. Eating whole olives would give you a similar nutrition, a little bit of fiber. So if you want that benefit, or cook with olive oil, of course, or spray it on your vegetables, or make a dip or something like that. This is so good. I think this is a good one to end with as we are nearing time. Someone said, I think these food fads are made up by people who have too much time on their hands. Probably. Like some of them are so silly. But yeah, all right. Let's see. Um, all right. Yes, there are so many questions. They are amazing. And oh, I did think of the thing I wanted to say about yogurt, and that will be my final talking point, and then we will revisit this because I have so much fun doing these. But I actually did a presentation about protein yesterday, and we talked a lot about yogurt. And there's like, you know, every choice we make, there are pros and cons to it. And when it comes to yogurt, so a strained yogurt, which is going to be something like a Greek or an Icelandic, which is called skyr, we strain away a lot of the whey and lactose and different liquidy parts to make it thicker. So that increases the protein content. But unfortunately, that liquid whey portion often also has a lot of the calcium. So we will have higher protein but less calcium in something like a Greek yogurt. And in a traditional, like thinner yogurt, you're going to have less protein but more calcium. So it's kind of just what you're looking for in that food. Greek yogurt and skyr often will still have a good source of calcium, but slightly less. So let's see. Okay, one more question, I promise. So in comparison, how much education does a physician have when it comes to nutrition compared to a dietitian? Also a great question. And it can really vary depending on the med school and depending on the physician, because just like dietitians, we need continuing ed and we can choose what we want to do that in. Some physicians really care about nutrition and want to learn more and will seek out that education. But in terms of their education that's mandatory and required for them to become a physician, often it's very lacking. They might have a few hours worth of education. And that's not great. Like, of course, we want them to learn more, but the hope is that they will know enough about nutrition and know that they can't possibly know enough to provide the type of services that their clients and patients might need. And then they can refer to dietitian and nutrition services. So that's kind of the hope. And of course, every health and every, specialty, like your endocrinologist might know a little bit more about nutrition than your podiatrist or whoever it is. So, and maybe your cardiologist knows a little bit more than your primary care. So it can really vary quite drastically, but it is definitely not it couldn't be on the scope of what a dietitian learns because that's our focus. Theirs is on medicine and those disease states. So, and preventing and managing them. So we all kind of have, we should be complementary in our services and all of that. Awesome. Well, I had a lot of fun. You asked a lot of wonderful questions, and I can't wait to do this again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow for class and Friday. But I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks and take care.